So the manufacturing attributes can be quantitatively measured using certain metrics. We are going to learn what are the metrics by which we can quantitatively measure the manufacturing processes. So there are two kinds of metrics. One is the production performance metrics and the other is the manufacturing costs metrics. Production performance metrics, we have the cycle time, production rate, availability, production capacity, utilization, manufacturing lead time, work in progress. All these are quantitative measures that represent the production performance. So operation cycle time is the sum of the processing time for the operation, handling time, that is loading and unloading the production machine, then tool handling time. So cycle time is the sum of these three times: processing time for the operation, handling time and tool handling time. All these three put together is the typical cycle time for any operation. Production rate. Production rate is the rate at which the units are produced. In batch production, the time taken is given by the sum of the setup time and the average production time for that unit. So Q is the quantity, batch quantity, then TC is the time required for the operation. So Q into TC is the time required for handling or processing those say 100 units, plus that TSU is the setup time required for the operation. Both put together is the batch time. So now if you want to calculate the production rate, then RP is equal to 1 by this TP. For job shop production, the quantity is always low and the variety is high. In such case, the average production time is given by TSU, that is the setup time plus the cycle time. So for high quantity production, you know that the setup time is almost negligible since the quantity is very high, production volume is very high. So TSU by Q tends to 0. So the production rate can be simply calculated with the formula 60 by TP. The next metric is availability. Availability is a measure of reliability for the equipment. It provides a measure of how well the equipment is used in the plant and how well the equipment in the plant is serviced and maintained. Availability is given by the formula A is equal to MTBF minus MTTR divided by MTBF. This MTBF is the mean time between the failures and MTTR is the mean time to repair. So you can understand with this diagram, MTBF is the time gap between each failures, and MTTR is the time required for repairing when the failure occurs. So availability is given by MTBF, the mean time between failures minus the time taken to repair, divided by the mean time between the failures. So it gives you an idea of how well the machines are being serviced. If the machines are being properly serviced and maintained, then the machine will be available for more time for the production operations. Next, the measure is production capacity, the maximum rate of output that a production facility is able to produce under a given set of operations. So in a set of conditions, how much quantity can the plant produce? It is also called as plant capacity when it refers to a factory. Assumed operating conditions, I said under a set of operating conditions. What are the operating conditions? That is the number of shifts per day, number of hours per shift and the employment levels. So simplest case, we will see a simplest case. There are n production machines in the plant. Let us say there are 10 lathes and they all produce the same part or product. Then each machine produces at the same rate. So plant capacity is given by N into, that is the number of machines, into HPC, that is the number of hours in the period being used. Then if you multiply it with the rate of production, then that gives the plant capacity. Number of hours we are going to work, the production rate into the number of machines will give you the plant capacity. If you want to adjust the plant capacity over a short term, you can increase or decrease the number of workers, one thing. Then you can increase or decrease the number of shifts, or you can increase or decrease the number of hours per shift. You can run overtime. Over a long time, if you want to adjust the plant capacity, then you have to increase the number of machines or increase the production rate by method improvements or through processing technology. Utilization, proportion of time that a productive resource, or let us say a machine tool, a production machine, is used relative to the time available under the definition of plant capacity. Let us say the plant capacity, the plant can work for 8 hours and you use the machine only for 6 hours, then the utilization is 3/4, 75%. Likewise, the proportion of time that a productive resource is used relative to its time available is called as utilization. Manufacturing lead time, the total time required to process a given part or product through the plant, including any time for delays, material handling, queues before machines, etc. So, it is a total time required for the processing. So, MLT, manufacturing lead time, is equal to N naught. N naught is the number of operations. If there are 10 operations, then N naught is the number of operations. So, TSU is the setup time plus Q into TC. Q is the batch quantity, say 100 units, 200 units, that is Q. TC is the cycle time. Let us say for the processing, for manufacturing, for doing that operation it takes 5 minutes, then the cycle time is 5 minutes, plus TNO, non-operation time. Sometime it may be idle. So, N naught into the setup time for tooling or the machinery or the part plus Q into TC. Q is the batch quantity into the cycle time per part plus non-operation time. All these put together will give you the manufacturing lead time. Work in process. Work in process refers to goods that are currently located in the factory. They are being processed or between processing operations. Say we have machined the part, but we are yet to finish the part. It is yet to undergo the finishing operation. Such a part is called a work in process. Work in process is given by hourly plant production rate into the manufacturing lead time. RPPH refers to the hourly plant production rate. So, the next metric, I said there are two functions. One is the performance, production performance, and the other thing is the cost function. So, manufacturing costs include two major categories. One is the fixed cost and the variable cost. Fixed costs remain constant for any output level. Let us say in a factory, if you are going to pay rent for the factory, then that is going to be a fixed cost, or plant and machinery, it is a fixed cost. Variable costs vary in proportion to the production output level. Variable costs are costs that vary depending on the quantity of the product. So, if the total cost has to be found out, then you can simply add the fixed cost and the variable cost. So, fixed cost plus variable cost per unit into the output level. If the quantity is 100 into cost per unit, variable cost per unit, let us say variable cost per unit is 5, then 5 into 100 will give you the total variable cost, plus the fixed cost is, let us say 2 lakhs, then 2 lakhs is the fixed cost. If you add both of them, you will get the total cost. Alternative classification of manufacturing costs. You can either differentiate it into fixed costs and variable costs, and you can, there is another classification by which you can segregate the manufacturing costs. One is the direct labor, wages and benefits paid to the workers. Directly you pay to the workers who process the product. Materials, cost of raw materials. Overheads, all the other expenses associated with the running the manufacturing firm. Let us say power requirement, rent, all these are factory overheads. And in overheads also there are two kinds of overheads, factory overhead and corporate overhead. Corporate overhead will include administrative overheads. Factory overheads will include overheads that are required for the processing of the part. Typical manufacturing costs you can see. that the manufacturing cost 12% is attributed by direct labor, 26% by plant and machinery depreciation, then 12% by indirect labor, and 50% for parts and materials, raw materials. So this is the major percentage of share for the manufacturing cost. Then the selling price, when you determine the selling price, they keep it as manufacturing cost will be only 40%, and above that the engineering cost for design, 5% for research and development, then 25% for administrative, sales and marketing, plus profit 15%. That profit depends on the company. Profit percentage, fixing the profit percentage varies from company to company. So this is how mostly the manufacturing costs are split up. So cost of equipment usage, cost for a worker machine system, hourly cost is given by CL, the labor rate, plus factory overhead rate, plus machine rate, plus machine factory overhead rate. So all these put together is the hourly cost of a worker machine system. Cost of the manufactured part is defined as the sum of the production cost plus material cost plus tooling cost. All this put together is the cost of the manufactured part. Cost for each unit operation is given by cost rate to perform unit operation, that is COI, into production time for the operation plus the tooling cost. Total unit cost is the sum of unit cost plus the material cost. So material cost is CM plus sigma of this cost for each unit operation. That is, the cost per piece is given by material cost plus the cost for the operation. Of Industry 4.0 is automation and artificial intelligence. So we have to learn about the automated systems. So we will be learning basic elements of an automated system, advanced automation functions, and the levels of automation that are possible. Automation is the technology by which a process or procedure is accomplished without human assistance. So the basic elements of any automated system would include power to accomplish the process and to operate the automated system, program of instructions to direct the process, control system to actuate the instructions. So the reasons for automating is obviously to increase the labor productivity, reduce the labor cost, mitigate the effects of labor shortages, reduce or remove routine manual and clerical tasks, improve worker safety, improve product quality, reduce the lead time, accomplish what cannot be done manually, to avoid the high cost of not automating. Automated manufacturing systems can be of three types: fixed automation, programmable automation, and flexible automation. Fixed automation, a manufacturing system in which the sequence of processing operations is fixed by the equipment configuration. They are suitable for high production quantities, high initial investment is required, high production rates are possible, relatively inflexible in accommodating product variety. From this, what can you understand? This kind of automation can be applied only when the production quantities are very high. Programmable automation, a manufacturing system designed with the capability to change the sequence of operations to accommodate different product configurations. The typical features are high investment in general purpose equipment, lower production rates than fixed automation, flexibility to deal with product variations. Most suitable for batch production. Physical setup or part program must be changed between jobs. Between each batch, the part program or the setup has to be changed physically. So that is programmable automation. From this you can understand that it is suitable for mid-volume, mid-variety functions. Flexible automation, an extension of programmable automation in which the system is capable of changing over from one job to the next with no lost time between jobs. Without any setup time, the automated system will be able to change over from one job to the next. Typical features, again, it requires a high investment for custom engineered system, continuous production of variable mixes. So the product variety can be very high. Flexible automation can accommodate the product variety. Medium production rate, flexibility to deal with soft product variety. So, from what I have explained, you can understand that programmable automation is suitable for job shop production, flexible automation is suitable for batch production, and fixed automation is suitable for quantity production or flow line production or mass production. So, when the product variety is high, you can go for programmable automation. For mid variety, you can go for flexible automation, and when the variety is very less, then you can go for fixed automation. So, as I said, automation requires three things. The first one is the power to accomplish the automated process. So, power is required for driving the process itself, to load and unload the work unit, to transport between operations. That is one requirement, and the other requirement will be the power for the automation, for the controller unit to actuate the control signals, to acquire data and process the information. So, power requirement is there for both the process and for the automation. Program of instructions, set of commands that specify the sequence of steps. Let us say a NC part program. The part program explains how the operation has to be performed, whether the spindle has to be switched off or on, whether the tool has to be mounted. All this are explained in the program of instructions. During each step, there are one or more activities that involve changes in one or more parameters. Let us say temperature setting has to be varied, axis position can be varied, motor can be switched on and off. All these can be done with the program of instructions. Decision making in a programmed work cycle. Following are the examples of automated work cycles in which decision making is required. Operator interaction. Let us say in an ATM machine, the operator interacts with the system. So, based on the interaction, the machine has the capability to run a set of programmed instructions. Different part or product styles processed by the system. Robot welding cycles for 2-door versus 4-door car models. So, the automated system should be able to perform operations for different varieties. Then it has to accommodate variations in the starting work units. So, depending on the size, let us say additional machining pass for oversized sand casting. If the casting is oversized, it has to accommodate the variations. The programmed work cycle should have the capability to accommodate the variations. Control systems. The control system is of two types. One is the closed loop control system, a system in which the output variable is compared with the input parameter, or you can simply say there is a feedback in a closed loop system, or any difference between the two is used to drive the output into agreement with the input. That is, whether it has a feedback system which checks whether the output has been already reached, or if not, the input is adjusted and the operation is performed. In an open loop control system, it operates without the feedback loop. It is simpler and less expensive. So, we do not know if the actuator has had the intended effect. Let us say the motor has to move for 60 centimeter. We cannot check in an open loop control system whether the motor has actually moved the work table to a distance of 60 centimeter. But in a closed loop system, we will be able to identify whether the operation has been performed or not. But a open loop control system is simpler. In simpler cases, we can go for an open loop control system, but for a complex process, we always prefer closed loop control system. So, you can see the input parameter is there, the controller, actuator, the process, and the output variable is there. The output variable is sent back to the controller through a feedback sensor in a feedback control system or closed loop control system. Whereas in the open loop control system, you can see that there is no feedback loop. The input parameter is given, the controller sends the instructions, the actuator performs the process, and the output is seen. There is no feedback. You can see this is an example of closed loop system. X value, motor input. As I said, the work table is moved to a distance. To check whether it has moved to the required distance, an optical encoder is used as a feedback sensor, and it sends the feedback signal back into the controller to say whether the work table has moved sufficiently or not. If it is not moved, then the controller sends another instruction to the motor to move a little further. So this is an example of closed loop control system. When can we use an open loop control system? When the actions to be performed are very simple, the actuating function is reliable, we can be sure that the actuator has moved and the actuator has performed the required operation. In such case, we can go for an open loop control system. When the actuator has very high accuracy, it is reliable. In that case, we can go for an open loop control system. Any reaction forces opposing the actuation are small enough as to have no effect on the actuation. If these conditions do not apply, then a closed loop control system should be used. Advanced automation functions are there. They are used in safety monitoring, maintenance and repair diagnostics, error detection and recovery. In safety monitoring, sensors are used to track the system's operation and identify conditions that are unsafe. So the reasons for safety monitoring is that workers' safety is ensured, possible responses to hazards, complete stoppage. If safety monitoring is done, then complete stoppage of the system can be done before any failure occurs. Then an alarm can be made to sound if there is any issue. Reduce operating speed of the process, take corrective action to recover from the safety violation. If there is some safety violation, let us say we have set a safety monitoring system where the alarm makes a sound if the worker is not using a welding goggle or a welding shield, then that ensures safety of the worker and also the system. Maintenance and repair diagnostics, status monitoring, monitors and records status of key sensors and parameters during system operation. So it records the major parameters, process parameters during the operation. Failure diagnostics, invoked when any malfunction occurs in the systems. Recommendation of repair procedure, it provides recommended procedure for the repair crew to effect repairs. It suggests where the repair has to be done. Error detection and recovery. Error detection uses the system's available sensors to determine when a deviation or malfunction has occurred, correctly interpret the sensor signal, classify the error. Error recovery, make adjustments at the end of work cycle, make adjustments during the current work cycle. Let us say if the spindle is a bit loose, then at the end of the operation, it makes the adjustments. Stop the process to invoke the corrective action. It asks if there is wobbling in the spindle, then the machine stops and asks the laborer or the worker to tighten the spindle. Stop the process and call for help. Different levels of automation. Automation can be on the device level. It starts with the device level, which has actuators, sensors and other hardware components to form individual control loops. At machine level, it may be CNC machine tools and similar production equipment, industrial robots, material handling equipments. Cell or system level. For a manufacturing entire cell or a group, we can go for an automated system. Plant level, factory or production systems, where the entire plant has been automated. In an enterprise level, corporate information system, they use an information system where the entire process is automated and every other group is informed. Let us say the design department is informed when they receive an order. The manufacturing system is invoked whenever the design is complete. So such a level of automation is at the enterprise level. So every time the automation has to be started in any factory from the device level, and it has to proceed towards the enterprise level. So you can see device level, sensors, actuators, other hardware elements. At machine level, individual machines. Cell or system level, manufacturing system, groups of machines. At plant level, production systems. Finally, the corporate information system. You can see that there is flow of data between each levels of automation. With more emphasis on waste reduction, the just-in-time and lean production started acquiring value in the manufacturing sector. Just-in-time is a philosophy of continuous and forced problem solving that supports lean production. Lean production supplies the customer with their exact wants when the customer wants it without any waste. Waste is anything that does not add value from the customer point of view. Storage, inspection, delay, waiting in queues, and defective products are all things that do not add value and are 100% wastage. Just in time and lean production aims at reducing these times or these things that are considered as waste from the customer's point of view. So, if there is waste reduction, faster delivery is possible, reduced work in process, faster throughput, all reduces the waste. Reduced waste reduces room for errors, emphasizing quality. Reduced inventory releases assets for other productive purposes. Just in time reduces the product variability. JIT systems require managers to reduce variability caused by both internal and external factors. Variability is any deviation from the optimum process. Inventory hides variability. Less variability results in less wastage. Causes of wastage variability: employees, machines, suppliers produce units that do not conform to standards, or late, or not the proper quantity. Engineering drawings or specifications are inaccurate. Production personnel try to produce before drawings or specifications are complete. Customer demands are unknown. All these factors cause product variability or deviation from the optimum process. If we reduce all these factors, then product variability can be minimized. So there are two kinds of system, the pull and the push system. A pull system uses signals to request production and delivery from upstream stations. That is, a pull system is made only to the order. A pull system manufactures only when the order is received, whereas a push system manufactures to stock. Upstream stations only produce when signaled. System is used within the immediate production process and with suppliers. By pulling material in small lots, inventory cushions are improved, exposing problems and emphasizing continual improvement. Manufacturing cycle time is reduced. Push systems dump orders on the downstream stations regardless of the need. Before getting the demand, push systems manufacture the product, so they dump orders on the downstream stations, whereas a pull system is more optimal. JIT has a competitive advantage that the suppliers can be reduced, layout, we have an optimal layout, inventory can be of small lot sizes, schedules can be properly maintained, preventive maintenance can be done, there is time for maintenance activities without stoppage of production, quality production, statistical process control, quality suppliers, quality within the farm, empowerment of the employee, commitment, all these are competitive advantages of just-in-time production. Just-in-time production results in faster response to the customer at lower cost and higher quality. JIT partnerships exist when a supplier and purchaser work together to remove waste and drive down costs. The four goals of JIT partnerships are elimination of unnecessary activities, in-plant inventory, in-transit inventory, and elimination of poor suppliers. Suppliers are kept few, nearby suppliers are contacted, repeated business with the same suppliers, supporting the suppliers so that they become or remain price competitive, competitive bidding, buyer resists, vertical integration, and subsequent wipeout of supplier business. Suppliers are encouraged to extend JIT buying to their suppliers. Distance reduction. Large lots and long production lines with single-purpose machinery are being replaced by smaller, flexible cells as in batch production or group technology. Often U-shaped layouts are preferred. Group technology concepts are used for distance reduction. Increased flexibility. Cells are designed so that they can accommodate volume or design change, applicable in office environments as well as production settings. It facilitates both product and process improvement. Impact on employees. Employees are cross-trained for flexibility and efficiency. Improved communication with little or no inventory buffer. Getting it right the first time is critical because we don't stock inventory. The manufacturing has to be proper the first time itself. Getting right the first time. Reduced space and inventory. With reduced space, inventory must be in very small lots. Units are always moving because there is no storage. Inventory is the minimum level necessary to keep operations running. You know what is inventory? There can be three kinds of inventory: raw material, work in progress, or finished goods. So in a JIT system or a lean system, finished goods are not stocked at all. They reach the customer immediately. JIT inventory tactics, they use a pull system in reduced lot sizes. The variability is reduced. See, if the inventory level is as shown for a normal system, and for a JIT system the inventory level is much reduced. So this provides cushion or a buffer for the manufacturing firm to use the asset that is invested on inventory to some other need. Reduce lot sizes. You can see that when the average order size is 200, the average inventory is only 100. When the average order size is 100, the average inventory is maintained to be 50. Ideal situation is to have lot sizes of one pulled from one process to the next. EOQ analysis, economic order quantity analysis, is used to calculate the desired setup time. The two key changes that are required is the improved material handling and reduced setup time. Schedules. Schedules must be communicated inside and outside the organization. We have to inform the supplier as to when the product has to be delivered so that he delivers in time. Level schedules. Process frequent small batches. Freezing the schedule helps stability. Kanban system. Kanban system is nothing but a signal or a card system that communicates the usage of inventory between two units, or two, let us say, between the manufacturing and the assembly departments, or between the manufacturing and the assembly department. User, you can see that Kanban's containers are stocked here. Once a Kanban a container is removed, there is a signal that is passed to the next department, indicating that one raw material has been used and it needs to be replenished. Signal is seen by the producing department as authorization to replenish. So you can see if you use a JIT level material, a little of stocking is enough, whereas a large lot approach, you need to stock a lot of inventory. So you can see that the Kanban signal can be passed between any kind of department, between the raw material supplier to the work cell, or from the work cell to the finished goods, or between the final assembly and the sub assembly, or between the purchased parts supplier and the work, and also between customer order and finished goods. Kanban signals or signals that need to be communicated between the departments in order to keep the inventory low, to reduce the waste, to produce in time. Kanban signal is an important concept in just-in-time production. Lean production, it is slightly different from just-in-time, that it is externally focused on the customer. It is also called as the Toyota production systems. In practice, JIT lean systems are essentially the same. Work shall be completed specified to content, sequence, timing, and outcome. Each customer supplier connection must be direct. Product and service flows must be simple and direct. Any improvement must be made in accordance with a scientific method at the lowest possible level of the organization. It should not escalate to the managerial level. It has to be solved within the lowest possible level of the organization. Lean systems use JIT techniques. They build systems that help employees produce perfect parts, reduce space requirements, develop close relationships with the suppliers. It educates the suppliers, it eliminates all but value added activities, develops the workforce to be more trained. That, I think we have come to the end of unit 1. We have discussed what are the major elements of CAD and CAM. We have learned what is concurrent engineering. We learned what are the manufacturing models and metrics, manufacturing costs, availability, utilization, mathematical models of production performance, manufacturing control, basic elements of automated system, levels of automation, lean production, and just-in-time production. I hope you found it useful. Thank you.